Hi, boys and girls. It's time for Bible. I thought we would back up just a little bit and talk about some of the judges we've already learned about. Now, the first judge of the Israelites was Othniel. And Othniel was their judge for 40 years. Now, he delivered the Israelites after 8 years of bondage. Remember, they would listen to the Lord, and then they would forget about the Lord, and then they would fall into idolatry and their evil ways, and then God would punish them by their circumstances, put them into bondage, and they cried out to God. Remember, it was just like this vicious cycle that they were in. But unfortunately, after Othniel died, the Israelites fell back into that pattern, and they went back into idolatry, back into their selfish, evil ways. And King Eglon, if you remember, they called him the Fat King Eglon, which really wasn't very nice, but I do believe it was true. He was really evil, and he put heavy taxes on the people, and so they hardly had any money to even have food to get food for their families. And so the Israelites were in terrible bondage to him. And so they cried out to God, and God chose Ehud. And Ehud was the next judge. So Ehud came up with a plan of his own. Him and the Lord came up with a plan. And so he went to deliver, if you remember, the tax money to King Eglon. And then, remember what he did? After him and his friends left, he told his friends, you know what? I need to go back and talk to King Eglon. You guys go ahead, and I have something I need to talk to him about. So remember, he went into the king's throne room, and he whispered to the king, and he said, I have some very important message to tell you. And so King Eglon told all his servants to leave and close the doors. And then Ehud leaned in closer and closer. And see right there what he made? Remember what he made? He made that dagger. And he plunged it into King Eglon. And King Eglon died. And Ehud quietly left, and he locked the door. Well, he got back home, and no one knew what happened to King Eglon because the doors were locked. And his people thought he was in there doing something all by himself. So they didn't want to bother him. Finally, they decided to go in, and they discovered that King Eglon had been dead. So Ehud was able to judge Israel for the next 80 years. And there was peace and rest. But after Ehud died, same thing happened again. The Israelites turned to idolatry. And so they cried out again once God punished them. And we don't know much about this judge. His name is Shamgar. And the thing we know most about Shamgar is that he took an ox goad, which is this tool right there. And the Philistines were the ones who were now oppressing the Israelites. And he took that ox goad and he killed 600 Philistines. And so they left the Israelites alone. And they lived with peace and rest until Shamgar died. And they went back to their evil ways. And there was this very wise woman. Her name was Deborah. And she was a prophetess of Israel. She was very brave, very wise, and a very good woman who worshiped the one true God. And Israel looked to her for judgment and counsel. One day the Lord assured Deborah that he would deliver the Israelites, because right now they were in Canaanite bondage. And he said, I will give you victory. So, if you remember, Deborah went right to Barak. He was in charge of the army, the Israelite army. And she said, listen, God said we're going to have victory. We must go at once. And remember, he was a little bit chicken, just a little. And he said to her, I will go. However, I will only go if you come with me. And then Deborah said, well, I will go with you, but the victory will not go to a man. The victory, the Canaanite victory over that evil Sisera, who was the one in charge then. Well, he worked for the king, actually. He was in charge of all the armies. He was a horrible, horrible man. And so she said, a woman is going to get the victory. So the battle began. And Deborah said to Barak, up, for this is the day that the Lord has given us victory over Sisera. And remember, they went into battle. But do you remember what happened to Sisera? Remember? While all his men were fighting and the Israelites were winning, so the Canaanite army was getting defeated. And guess who ran away? It was their leader. It was Sisera. He was in charge of King Jabin's army, and he left because, well, he didn't want to die in the battle. So he left, and he walked, and he found the tent of a woman. Now, this woman named Jael, she recognized Sisera. And she was an Israelite, but he did not know it. And she didn't tell him. So she just pretended to be nice to him. And she said, oh, why don't you come in here for some rest? Come in, I'll give you something to drink. You can lay down and you can rest. And so he did. And remember, he lay down and he told her, he goes, now listen, go stand by the tent door, because I don't want anyone to come after me. And if anyone asks if I'm here, you say, no, I'm not here. Such a chicken. So she said, oh, yes, don't worry. Remember, she gave him some warm milk, and he laid down, and she watched him, and she watched him, and she watched him. And then he fell into a deep, deep sleep. And while he was asleep, Jael took a spike from the tent. She bent down and she pounded it right into Sisera's forehead, nailing him to the ground. And not King Sisera, it was King Jabal, but Sisera was in charge of his armies. Sisera died that day. So Jael went and she told the Israelites that Sisera was gone. And Deborah judged the Israelites for the next 40 years. And guess who got the victory? It wasn't Barak and his army. It was Jael. She got the victory for defeating Sisera. But now you know, at the end of Deborah's life, when she died, the people of Israel went back to their evil ways. They worshiped the gods of the Canaanites. They offered sacrifices and bowed down to these fake gods, the gods that have no eyes to see and no ears to hear. So the Lord allowed the Midianites to come and destroy the crops of Israel because Israel had sinned. And we're going to learn who is going to be the next judge. And the next time we have Bible, boys and girls, we're going to learn that an angel of the Lord appeared to this young man, and his name is Gideon. And we will learn his story the next time we have Bible. I love you, boys and girls. Bye for now.